Cool, how's it everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Behind the Fader. We're not sure if this name has been registered yet, so hopefully if you're watching this, it's properly registered and nobody else has the name. So a whole new program, a whole new series talking with sound engineers, music producers and musicians in the SA music industry. People actually busy doing something in studios, creating the music that you're hearing on radio and on TV every day with local artists and obviously international guys as well. Today I am in New Groove Studios with Jacques Rautenbach. Jacques,
thanks for being here.
Thanks for letting us in.
No, it's a privilege.
Awesome. So Jacques, when I arrived here, I've known Jacques for quite a while, but not really. I've known he plays drums and he's got a studio and he works in studios, and not really knowing, what Jacques does. So we get here. And I'm like, Jacques, tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you do? And he was like, I don't really have a lot of names that I do. And I'm like, and then actually, after speaking, I had to take a photograph of the amount of people he's worked with. All right. So Jacques is a very humble guy, and we're not going to allow that in the show today. We're gonna name drop because there's some serious names on here. Jacques has been the drummer for Koenie de Villiers, for Bok van Blerk on his breakthrough album, for Bobby van Jaarsveld on his breakthrough album, Lianie May, Steve Hofmeyr, Pieter Koen, Gerhard Steyn, APPEL, Eden, Die Vloes, Kurt Darren, the list goes on. And Jacques has been in this industry for a while. So we are really honored to be in your studio today and having you for you having us as your guest. And
it's really a privilege, Ned. When you phoned, I was like, cool. Really privileged.
Let's do this.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. Jacques, let's start from the beginning. How did you get into the music industry?
Well, obviously as a child, I was 13, 14 years old. I was banging pots and pans.
Good.
And that's how it starts. And my mom and dad walked in. I think I was driving them crazy. And asked my brother, do you think you'll be able to play drums? My brother said, I think so. And that's how it started. They bought me a drum kit and I started practicing lots of hours. Yeah. So that was the beginning. I played a week, started playing in church. I think you know what that feels like.
Yes.
So it's been fun and games, ever since, actually. That was the start.
All right. And then how did that progress? Like from learning, did you study drums? How did it start from learning to play drums to actually becoming a professional drummer?
I'm not sure.
Can't remember.
Well, obviously I didn't study. Sometimes I wish I did.
Yeah.
But I was practicing 3 to 6 hours a day. Just really developing. When I was 16, me and my brother started. We set up a recording studio. I think that was our first go-to place. Set up a place to record. And I think I always tell people that I grew up in studio because that's actually how it went. I was 15-ish when all of this happened. So I was in a recording studio my whole life. And that the opportunity and the discipline that taught me, I think, is priceless in the beginning because, especially early days when you just actually want to rock and roll.
Yeah.
And immediately you're confronted with a studio environment where things have to be right and you've got to be real disciplined.
You've got to play and click.
You've got to do those things, So my idols were actually the top session players at that stage, which were Kevin Kruger, Wally Cullis, guys like that. I was huge fans of them, and they were real pocket players, real tight players, and so that was the inspiration. I never started playing drums to impress or really to get a Lars Ulrich or something. Well, maybe always, but at the end of the day, I was always into disciplined music and really working hard at that, at being a studio drummer.
Yeah.
So that was the early days. Obviously to go and study is always an advantage. I wish I knew some of the things the youngsters know today. They're just brilliant.
Definitely. Studying music is definitely a huge advantage. And with the internet these days, we are not limited. We could study with international colleges, with international lecturers, with people that worked with the best artists in the world with a click of a button, and So
no, there's really lots of resources available. I actually, it's sort of once a week. I have a group. Actually, do them one-on-one. It's not a group. from a local school here that actually they bring them here to show them they're drummers. So the serious drumming stuff they get taught by serious drummers, and I show them around in studio.
By the serious drummers, not the drummers who play on the top selling albums in this country, but the serious ones. Yes.
The thing is it's important, you know, if you want to survive in this industry, to not take yourself too seriously.
Yes.
And I think that's been a key for me. You know, of course, I love drumming. It's always, I call it fun and games, you know. But if you take yourself too seriously, you know, there's in my opinion, the serious players like Vinny and those guys, and that's all they do, and they're very serious about it. And I mean, I love them for it. So for me, it's not a joke. I love doing it. Yeah. But obviously, I don't take myself too seriously.
Yeah,
you know, I just enjoy it. When I get the chance to play, I think that was a big thing for me. The early days, I didn't enjoy it as much as I do now, because I wanted to be the best, and you work and you practice and you like super driven, and somewhere along the line you forget to have fun.
Yeah.
And when I actually stepped back and said, okay, well, the most important thing is to do things in life that actually makes you happy.
Yeah.
That moment was the moment that I started having fun. So when the first gig came up and someone booked me to play, I was like, hell yeah, let's do this, you know. And I actually enjoyed the gig. So that was a big change for me, something that I think the early days that was lacking, you know, for me.
Well, it is obviously different if you have to make a living from it, and you know, if you purely rely on the income. Absolutely. Or if you have to, you know, you can do it for fun. So, well, that brings me to the next question. So now, obviously, you in a studio environment with your brother, Jacques Rautenbach, who is going to be on a future episode, is already organized. For those wondering who his brother is, and so with your brother in studio, now how did that involve with you actually getting your own studio, starting to track your own drums? You know, well, having this studio where we're sitting in today.
Well, I mean, I was always part of it. I was always a silent partner, and you know, I always had sideline businesses running. You know, so I was a silent partner in his recording studio. And obviously, when there was session work and stuff, you know, that we needed to do, I was there to help and record. But I left. So this is a good few years ago now, my brother got an opportunity. We actually built this studio at the beginning for him. And he was here for a short while, and then he got another great opportunity, and he moved along. And we had a record label. We had 9 artists under us, and that we had to produce and do everything for, and all the gear was here. And I mean, this place was standing empty, well, not empty, full of gear and nothing happening, probably for a week or two. And then I just said, shit, I've got to do something. I really have to, you know, see what we can do. So I came here, phoned my brother. How do you put on this gear? How do you boot the computer? Not that I didn't know how to.
Where's the on button?
Where's the on button? So that's how it started. I mean, it was within, you know, a few weeks that I started learning and actually phone a friend the whole time. You know, how do you do this? How do you do that? And that was actually the first time I said, okay, well, let's try it on this side of the button, you know. So that was actually a fun and a nice learning curve. But the important thing for me is that when you get to on this side of the creative process, it was sort of immediate. I had an inclination immediately to start producing my own work. To start, I mean, I was busy for 3 weeks, and then I thought to myself, yes, man, I can write something. I can actually do something.
You're actually hearing ideas.
I'm hearing ideas and stuff. So that was actually the story for this year behind this for me, because that was the exciting part. You know, actually sitting on the side and being able to really get creative. Whilst with drums, you've got to do your job, love it. Take it seriously, practice, but you're a machine.
You listen differently. With drums, you listen completely. You're like, oh, am I in time? Am I playing the right
different
part?
Sets of rules, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, from a producer's point of view, you know, it's something different. Where I mean, I'm in the studio always, you know, if I track a drummer, I know the drummer is listening to his own playing, whereas the producer, you trying to figure out what is the guitar's going to do along with that and that type of thing. And I think that's what you're talking about, the creative thing.
The process you would know, as you say. I mean, being a producer, you listen completely from a different point of view, and that's been the exciting thing. I think now, again, relating it, not that I want to do that too much, but relating it back to being a drummer, I mean, a lot of guys that I've been playing recently with, you know, has told me, wow, you're actually playing better than you've ever been playing. I think the fact that you're on this side and you're listening from a different point of view at what the music is doing as a whole,
Yes.
just as opposed to am I in time and am I doing the technically correct stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So that's been a big mind shift for me, and an exciting one actually.
Cool. Well, yeah. So with that mind shift, I know that you've recently started composing classical music and that type of thing. So from being a drummer, hitting pots and pans, where did the classical thing come from, and what is happening on that front?
Man, well, yeah. It's really exciting journey for me. To give you a short history, I'm not sure where it came from. Certain things started to make sense, you know, as I was trying to analyze this, because I started hearing melodies and tunes and definite orchestrations in my head, which is quite weird, I know, going crazy, and so yeah, I mean, I actually started analyzing, trying to find out how did this happen, you know, where did it come from. And to be honest, I think I was the only 15-year-old young boy trying to get a girlfriend and listening to Lianie, you know, so it's a bit of a weird thing. And obviously, again, you know, if you look at as from a child, you know, I mean, I was listening to SABC's classical programs, you know, and didn't switch the TV off to go and watch cartoons. So I think there was a love for that came, the whole, you know, that came. How does it translate to what I do now? I know absolutely nothing. I hear all these melodies and voices in my head. I listen to stuff over and over. And I actually hear all the instruments and what every instrument should do. And sometimes I really get crazy and I ask my wife, did you hear that oboe playing that high part there? And she tells me no, and then okay, that's still in my head. I've got to quickly play it in. So that's the process. And in terms of what's been happening, very exciting for me. My first album, I thought there was actually, you know, the market for the type of music in South Africa is very small. Mistake. But I sent the stuff overseas, and I was lucky enough there was quite a few nice radio stations in 5 countries, mostly in Europe and then Australia, that started playing the music. A few countries in radio stations in South Africa. And a few months ago, I don't know if I'm allowed to do the punt, but Classic FM,
plug away.
Cool. Classic FM playlisted some of my tracks, and the change was actually just immense. I mean, people started approaching me, sending me messages, and every day, I mean, I deal with lots of messages every day from people hearing the music and, you know, reaching out. So that it was actually a huge opportunity and door opening for me. And so the music's playing still in 5 countries.
That is awesome.
Quite incredible stations in South Africa, and the support is actually incredible. I'm actually dumbstruck by how many people in South Africa does actually listen to this.
You know what? It was funny, like going off on a different tangent, but exactly that type of thing. With us being in a different industry mostly, you know, working with mainly Afrikaans artists, you know, those type of people, we're not really aware of what's happening in the other industries, you know. To give an example, you know, on the classical side of things, you know, I also had a lot of classical influence because in the high school that I was studying music, you didn't have the option of learning drums or guitar, you had to learn piano, and then you had to study Tchaikovsky and Vivaldi and Chopin and Beethoven, which I hated. You would have probably loved it. I
didn't have the opportunity. I would have loved it.
I hated it. I wanted to know about AC/DC. And anyway, and but a couple of months back, I started reading DJ Sabu. I don't know if he's a DJ on 5FM, his book. And he talks about, like, with him at 5FM and all of the artists that he grew, you know, that he works with in Tembisa, you know. And suddenly I realized, but I don't know any of these. And these are artists that are selling millions. They're playing on all the other radio stations.
Absolutely.
I know nothing. I've never even heard of them, you know. And exactly with the classical music thing, you know,
it's a whole new world. It wasn't a decision not to be part of Afrikaans music, because when I gig, I still play Afrikaans music. When I record, I do it the whole time.
You live in South Africa.
We live in South Africa. So, and there's amazing Afrikaans music out there, as with all the English stuff as well.
Yeah.
But I think it was, on the one side, a decision to just broaden my horizons and to say, look, I'm not going to stay here and just focus on the Afrikaans music, but actually just, you know, go on and actually explore. And that's been the journey. You know, I think going back to having the recording studio and all of that, the amazing part for me is being able to do your own thing. You know, I think that's the most important thing in life, is actually just to find the thing that really makes you happy, and to just chase it. Chase.
Definitely.
You know,
question that pops up: being a drummer, like I can now see from a guitarist point of view, you know, like I would just jam a couple of chords and that would kind of spark something.
Yes.
How does your process work? Like how do you initially start creating? I mean, from
nothing,
from a drum to having like a full on orchestration.
Yes.
What's your process?
Well, the first album I wrote, Shades of Blue. There it is. Yeah, I mean, the first album I literally started programming MIDI chords, you know, piano, and I knew nothing. I actually have a notepad. This is funny. I actually have a notepad. I used to phone my brother and ask him, look, I'm in the key of, let's make it now really easy, C.
Yeah.
What are the chords in C? What's this? What's
Which
that?
white notes?
Yeah. All of that. I used to phone him. I actually deleted that file in this week. Because I saw this and I was like, oh my soul, I can just see how far I've come, you know, which is nice. So I started programming stuff, the chords, have a basic chord structure, and then I would hear the melodies, you know.
With that,
So then I would either program it or use a controller and play everything until I get it right, or very slowly. That was the first album. So it was really a long process to do it that way. And then I spoke to a friend of mine, Moritz, everyone knows him, and I asked him, do you think I should learn piano? You know, is that the next step? Learn piano, or just continue knowing nothing and see where it gets you? So he couldn't give me a good answer, because there's actually advantages and disadvantages to both. So my answer was, look, I suck at it, but I started learning piano. So the second and the albums from there and the stuff I'm busy now with, I'm on piano. So I write basic chord structures, some basic melody stuff, and then the rest of it happens in my head. Like I said, I'll listen to something over and over, and I just it's very weird. I instinctively know what every instrument should do. Yeah, that's my basically.
Well, that creativity.
I'm going crazy.
That's
it's a mad process.
Next album is 50 Shades of Grey.
Brilliant.
I stole that out of a movie. Sorry, it's not mine. But well, that is awesome. All right. So the recording process for that. So it's like with the albums that you produce, do you again get live session guys in, string players to come in and play, or
always? I think, I mean, I'm really privileged. I mean, I actually tell everyone this as well. Lizelle, LaRue, Effort van Niekerk, Susan, and a list actually of other players that I've worked with. So I at least get those guys to do the solo parts and at least enhance what you've programmed, you know. So especially the early days, you know, if you actually know nothing about the articulation and actually how to write and tell them what you want, it's very difficult. You've got to play them the stuff, they interpret it, and you tell them, yes, that's what I want, and you record it. So that was the early days. Now, you know, again, with self-study and all the help that's available online, I'm busy with some courses and learning to write my own music and to do my scores, and from the articulations to everything, and that has made the process, you know, a lot easier. So basically, you book the guys to come in for a day or 5, depending on what you want. You know the process, and you sit with them. And I mean, if you score the music properly, it makes it actually very fast. So that helps a lot.
But so next question: software. What DAW do you use for?
In Logic. Love it. I used to work on Cubase, and I can't afford it. True story. No, love Logic. I mean, I switched over and I'm loving everything they have to offer in terms of orchestration and the rest of the samples and stuff. East West, big supporter. So that's pretty much I mean, that's where I live.
Yeah, Logic, but out of a scoring point of view, the reason I'm asking is obviously from.
I'm busy learning one of the
command print MIDI score.
I'm busy learning one of the grand stuff. You know, at this stage, I actually do the full orchestration still in Logic, because I go through. I mean, obviously your notes are there, so you start there, and then you start doing articulations and all the other markings.
Yeah, quite a process, eh?
I've got a few finished scores, and the first one was was really a big thing. I recorded a tune that I wrote, the Joker. It was literally, I named it that because it is what it is. You know, it's sort of a teasing teasing tune, and that was the first full score for a quartet that I did, and I did all the articulations and made sure everything was perfect as fine as I could, because I'm just a drummer. But anyway, so I booked the guys to come in, and when it started, when they started playing the parts and everything worked, I was like, hell yeah,
that's what
this is
want.
working, you know, and it's going according to plan. So that's a lot of work and also dedication to get that right. But that's obviously the goal, you know, to also just get to a stage where you develop your own scores, and those things are playable and correct.
But that's the thing, it's a learning thing. I remember now that
it's a process.
When you
it's
mentioned
beautiful.
Maurits earlier, I remember when I was just starting out one day, and I spoke to Maurits the other day, and I told him about this. He probably didn't even remember. He was late for a recording session. I remember we had people like I think Susan Maton was a cello player, and also like a full string quartet sitting in studio, mic'd up and ready,
and waiting for Mo.
And waiting for the producer and the arranger. You know,
that's Mo.
But that's the thing. But I remember this so vividly. Maurits walking in studio, pulling out a piece of paper, putting it on the tabletop, empty piece of paper, and starts notating. He sits there.
Oh my soul! Yeah, it's brilliant.
He walks into the studio, puts it in front of the cello, well, in front of a string quartet. We walk back into the booth. He's like, "Cool, let's go." And mind blown.
One day.
But that's the thing. That it's the learning curve. It's like from learning what.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the white
from
notes
being
and
a drummer, you know, trying to master one thing is difficult enough. But coming from there and just being on a journey, you know. Each one has a journey.
Yes.
And I think it's important to find that journey for yourself and to chase it.
You know what? Maurits can't play drums like you do.
Well, maybe.
Sorry, Kani.
I mean, I recorded. I didn't actually. We did some gigs, live gigs together back in the day. But I recorded the Steve Hofmeyr album with Maurits as producer, and I will say this on camera, not officially. He was one of the most difficult producers to work with. We're friends now, but yeah, it was a daunting process. But yeah, I mean, it's important to find what you love, chase it, and enjoy that journey, because coming from this, and you know, even if I get to a stage when I'm 50, you know, being able to do what Mo does in terms of just writing and just going, and I mean, that's joy for me, you know.
But let's be honest, we get musicians, we get producers, and then we get genius. And,
True story.
So let's
True story.
we'll leave it at that. Carrying on. All right. So
next episode. Stay tuned.
So tell us more about your studio. What gear do you use? What microphones do you? What are you using? What's like vocals, drums? What do you go for preamp and microphone wise?
I use what I have.
Great answer.
Because you know, being in South Africa, there's obviously gear for us is really expensive.
Yes.
So you've got to weigh, you know, what you can afford versus what the users are going to be. So obviously, I want nicer mics and I want nicer everything. I've got a few nice preamps. I've got a Neve Strip Wannabe here behind me, and I've got a LA16.
The LA16s are great. I also have one.
They're great. And one ISO channel, I would love more of them. Another 16 solo channel, and some other stuff, some more generic stuff as well. So I had a choice with limited budget putting up a studio. You know, what are you going to invest the most money into? And for me, preamps one. I did a lot of research going into the type of sound I want from, you know, what I'm going to record, and that was the answer for me. The best answer is just to have the best mics and the best preamps and all of it, which I can't afford at this stage. But
nobody can.
Yeah. From a mic point of view, again, I mean, we're using 57s on the kit. We're using some Rode MT2As as overheads. It's very humble.
Rode are amazing mics.
It is amazing mics.
I
love them. Make no mistake. But what I'm trying to say is it's not a mic budget that's going to break the bank.
Yeah.
I think the most important part of doing this is having ears, you know. So you can take a piece of crap equipment and really work hard at it and get a great sounding album, and you can have the best gear alive. and do
Make
a
it sound
crappy
terrible.
album, you know.
Yeah.
So it really depends on your ears and what you do.
Yes.
For me, I'm also lucky. There's quite a few producers because the studio is. I do also hire it out, you know, as the dry hire. So I mean, there are other producers that come here, they do their thing, and I just assist and, you know, set up and do those types of things, help with the pre's, and guys come in and they actually just do their thing. So it's very relaxed and open and chilled. You know, the guys do actually what they want. It's home.
Yeah.
You know.
Awesome.
It's a nice environment.
Cool. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think I had this conversation a couple of weeks back with Mark Beeling as well. We spoke about it earlier. Is that it? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, you know, what gear you have. It doesn't matter, you know, like what frequency response the microphones has in the preamps. Does it sound good?
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. I mean, I told you, and now it's official. I mean, you know, 5 times what I do in terms of everything.
Debatable again.
No, definitely not. But the thing is you actually enjoy the process. You work with what you have, and I've heard amazing stuff done with you know, from guys that have much less than I do.
Yeah.
So that's always important to remember that you. The intellectual property, what you're putting out there, is actually what makes you different and what makes you special. Obviously, great gear helps, and I mean, we can definitely punt Marshall. I mean, a lot of most of what I actually have was bought by them. I mean, they've always been very helpful. But we're always striving to have better monitors, better this, better that. So I think it's a process that's not going to end. And if you can justify what you're spending versus what this is worth.
But don't limit yourself saying, I can't do this because I don't have that gear, because the gear doesn't determine the creative process.
No, definitely. That's
as a guitarist, we all, I know this as well, you know, always, I just need that amp or that pedal or that guitar. No. You need to practice.
You'll hear all the amp stories from my brother.
We will. Looking forward to that one.
You will. I mean, that's I think as a drummer, you get guys that are obviously also like that, and they're very into their gear, and I really respect them for being. I love the gear I use, but it's for me, I don't actually care what it looks like or anything. I mean, thinking as a producer now, if it sounds right on this side, you could be eating the pots and pans on that side. If it sounds right and it works for the song,
it's right.
Then you go for it. You know,
awesome. If you could give anybody watching this, like thinking I'm 15 years old, I'm busy hitting pots and pans, but I also want to work in a studio one day. I want to play with top acts. What advice would you give that girl or guy?
I think. Look, there's 2 sides of it, let me say. As a musician, I would say if you can go and study, do it. I mean, knowledge is power. Again, if you're not that person, you can go online and get everything you know. So then you have to have a lot of, you know, you actually have to motivate yourself. You've got to have a lot of drive to do it that way. But if you can, go and study and make the most of it. Really learn and really go for it. I mean, knowledge is power still throughout. So as a musician, and then practice. I started playing piano, new instrument at 38. It's a difficult process to do it now. So when you're young, you can really tap into it, and it actually becomes part of you quickly. You know,
it's like learning a language.
It is. Yeah. So practice. From a different point of view, in terms of, you know, how you want to be in the industry, I would say what I've been saying the whole time is identify what you love and start chasing it with all you're worth. Because at the end of the day, the thing that's going to make you stay in this industry, I promise you, is not a producer or a musician you've recorded with or anything you've probably done, unless it's the thing that makes you stay in this industry. Definitely. And that thing is that deep love and passion you feel for the thing that drives you, the music in your head, the rhythm. I'm not dissing drummers or anything, definitely not. Yeah. It can be that rhythm in your head, it can be the bass part, it can be whatever you want. But that thing that drives you, that big passion love, that's the thing that's going to keep you in the industry.
Yeah.
So find out what that is. That's the self-discovery process. Find out what that is, and then start chasing it with all your might, because you're going to need it.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy.
Definitely. Yeah. South Africa is not an easy country, but it is possible to make a living.
Definitely possible. I mean, only 40 now, and we've been doing it since, I mean,
25 years since you're 15.
Yeah, literally 16. Actually, I left school because a school offered me a drum teaching job, a high school. Yeah, so I started teaching drums at a Hoërskool Waterkloof when I was 16. I was teaching some matric students, and I was standard 8, supposed
Younger
to.
than him.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was where things started. But I mean, you've got to chase what you love.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jacques, if people want to get in contact with you, work with you, get you to play on their albums, play with them live, work with you in studio,
Shame,
book
poor
your studio, and how can they get in contact with you?
Well, the easiest would be to send email, I suppose. I've got a few Facebook pages, so they could go on Facebook and obviously check me out.
Awesome.
I am on Instagram. I've got my website, Which Camera?
Anyone, all of them.
www.jacquesrautenbach.com.
Awesome.
And email address info@jacquesrautenbach.com for all other inquiries. I mean, they can obviously, I'm not going to give them my phone number.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll put that in the description.
Yeah, please.
His WhatsApp number if you want to send.
I need attention.
Photos.
Not really. But yeah, basically any type of social media.
Awesome. We'll put all of the Jacques links in the description below. So if you want to go check him out, everything will be there. So if you want to work with him, awesome guy to work with. Jacques, thanks so much for having us in your studio today.
Man.
It's been a blast.
It's been an absolute privilege.
I'm sorry this is over now.
I really, really appreciate it, man.
Cool, man. Definitely.
Privilege.
Thanks for watching. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the share button, whatever platform you're on at the moment. Get involved, learn more about the SA music industry. There is so much more than what's happening abroad, happening in this country. Support the local guys, and thanks for watching. See you next week.